I came back for a specific reason, to help people not be afraid of death, okay? Because death, in truth, is going back to where you came from, and it's a beautiful experience, and there's nothing.
Welcome to another inspiring episode of Podcast with SHEILA, the podcast that is spreading positivity around the world by sharing inspiring life experiences. So this is the part 2 where Nicole was sharing with us in the previous episode of her accident with which she had to endure a near-death experience. She shared with us the trial she's been in. She also shared the impact of the car crash and everything else she's had to deal with, and she not wanting to be in the military as a result of wanting to please her dad. She had ended up there. She shared with us her dreams for the future before the accident as somebody who wanted to go into fashion and all of that kind of life. There is more to it. If you've not yet listened to the part 1 of this episode, please do well to listen to it before you jump onto the part 2, because I believe you'd be able to understand the story better and follow up if you've gone on to the part 1. Let's carry on, Nicole. Before we went away, we're talking about the love of God and the fact that God does not judge us and He's very forgiving. If there's anything else you want to add to that, we'll be happy to take it. If not, then we move on to...
I think so many of us, when I went over to the other side, on the other side of death, God was all around me. That was that white light that people talk about. God was in me. God was me. I was God. God was presence and fullness and oneness. But most of all, God was love. Pure, non-judgmental love. And in that state, it was not that I had been forgiven for my mistakes. It's just that they no longer existed. Nothing I had done on earth was being weighed or measured. Now, I want people to hear that. Nothing you do on earth is being weighed or measured. It just was simply the way my story played out in this one realm. Okay? And I believe that our soul is here to learn a lesson. We come in to evolve with our soul. And our soul reincarnates or incarnates many different times. And we are here, I am here, I believe you are here, SHEILA, to help raise the vibration of the planet. We're what we would call light workers, and helping bridge the old that is crumbling with the new, the crumbling of religious institutions that instilled fear in people, that abused people in the name of God, that created wars in the name of God. That was all beliefs that were completely false, okay? They were man-made. So I want people to know on the other side, my experience was you are not judged at all. The other awesome thing, the positive thing, is you're not alone, okay? We always get scared, I think, of being alone, and I think COVID did a number on a lot of people when they weren't able to see their loved ones in the hospital, or people were passing and they were passing alone. Well, there's a whole spiritual realm filled with angels and guides and just people or beings that want to help us, and we have to remember to ask them for help, ask our angels for help, because we have free will. And so I'm telling you, just the other day, I asked an angel, I was at an event, I said, I need a parking place. Please bring me a parking place. And not 4 seconds later, there was a parking space. So even something as small as that, there's nothing too small to ask the angels for. Each one of us has at least one guardian angel that we came into this world with. Some of us have a lot more. But I really want to encourage people to start the relationship with their angels, but also with their soul, because we each have a soul. And I know growing up in the South, it was soul music, soul food, and the wrath of God would get your soul if you did something bad, and you'd go burn in hell in eternity.
Yeah.
And now I know that's completely crazy. That's not true.
Yeah.
But back then, growing up as a child, it was terrifying. It was terrifying to think that you would be separated eternally from God and your family. So you're living in fear, which is your sympathetic system, that fight, flight, freeze part of your brain. And let me tell you, anytime that part of your brain is making decisions, it's not going to be for your highest and greatest good. You need to make them from your prefrontal cortex, where your executive thinking and rationalization comes in. But when you're in fear and you're living in fear your whole life, that's where you're making your decisions. And that's how you keep sabotaging yourself unknowingly.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But before I say anything or chip in over there, I would like to ask, what was your relationship with God like before the accident, and what is it now like after the accident?
That's a great question. Before the accident, I really believed that you had to have Jesus in your life to be your Lord and Savior, that something external got you to God. And after my experience, I now know that each one of us is an eternal spark of God. Okay? You don't have to go looking externally to be in the presence of God. Okay? God is within each and every one of us. And Jesus has come to me in the form of being a way shower. He is an ascended master in my view, and if we could all live like Jesus lived, think of how beautiful our planet would be. But so many people have hijacked Jesus's words or what he said, or just manipulated, or just only take parts of the things that he said and apply it. But the biggest one is judgment. He said, "Judge not, lest you be judged." And look at how much judgment goes on in our society. And that's where we have to start with ourselves. If we can quit judging ourselves, then we're less inclined to just judge others and just be accepting and knowing that we're all connected. We all go back, quote, home to this spiritual dimension where we're all soul brothers and sisters. There's nothing dividing us between race, color, sex, any of that kind of stuff, because it's the energy, that vapor of breath that leaves us. That doesn't have a human characteristic to it. And so the God that I believed in prior was the one I was raised with, and I feared God. So I died actually fearing God. And I remember crying out, "Oh my God, help me," because I knew when I hit the ground I was going to die. I just knew it. And I did. And so at that point, an angel, I called him Casper the ghost in the book, but I now know it was my grandfather on my father's side, came down and lifted me up and took me to the other side and told me that I was going to come back, that I had a mission. And I was like, no, I do not want to go back. I do not want to get back in that body. It is too damaged. It's going to be painful. There's going to be a lot of suffering. I don't want to go back into an infancy state where I'm going to be dependent on my parents again, because I couldn't walk. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I mean, I was messed up physically and mentally. And so they were going to take me right back into the Baptist church, back into the Lutheran church. They were going to be praying for me. And I do believe in prayer. Prayer is energy and prayer is powerful. So I do believe in that. So I have had to reconceptualize God. And that concept is still evolving. I don't think anybody has the complete answer, but I do know that God is not, in my experience, about fear, about criticizing, judgmenting, scaring the pee-pee out of people. That is not him at all. He is love. And I love in my book, I actually work with NET, and I had a little 6-year-old client who was being raised in an evangelical home, and she was scared. She was adopted, and she was scared she did something bad and that she was going to be separated from her parents in all eternity. And so she was wetting the bed and having a lot of fear, right? Naturally. And so when I asked her how she sees God, she eagerly told me God is a blue spirit with colors and balloons in all different colors, no head, and can talk. Now, clearly, this little girl is still having a direct experience with God. No filters from other people are involved, and her understanding inspired me. And your own experience of God will probably look nothing like hers or mine, yet I hope my story will give you the encouragement to continue on your spiritual journey path. Whether you're just starting or you spent a lifetime, you're surely never going to, any of us, reach the end of the road until we do pass on. So it keeps evolving. But what I know now is God is energy. There's nowhere God is not. God was never born. God never is died. God is in nature. You know, it's everywhere. God is everywhere. And the thing is it's a presence that you feel. And when you're in alignment, your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, that is when I feel that presence the most, the reassurance, the connection to that spiritual realm. And you have to address your fears to get into that state of alignment, the limiting belief systems. And that is not for the faint of heart, because that requires you having to look at yourself, your beliefs, the generational beliefs that were passed down to you, you know, and going, wait a minute, does this really fit who I am and what I believe? What do I believe when I die? You know, what is my concept of my death? You know, what am I scared of it? Am I okay really living? Because if you're in fear, you're not going to really live.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Somebody had said that, you know, we're brought up as children of God through religion, but being a Christian is a special experience. When I was back home, I thought that I was a Christian, I was worshiping God and all, but sorry, when I had moved away from my comfort zone to here, and I'm having to deal with life, and I'm having to live life and go through series of events and life challenges, I experienced God on a different level. I had a personal relationship with him. And I think that kind of experience, it takes a few people, and those who are willing to have this experience with him. It's different when you're just going to church, hearing the word of God. That is a different thing. Or when they're telling you God doesn't like this, doesn't like that. And it's also a totally different thing when you're experiencing God personally. And sometimes some of these life challenges leads us on the path to experience God in this light. I want to ask you, do you think that the impact of the accident helped shape your thinking to who God is and what is he is in your life, totally different from what you had been shown by your parents? Did the accident do that to you, give you a different perspective?
100%, especially when my memory came back almost 20 years later. I had a very clear memory of what happened on the other side. I remember, the colors, the music, and you're not talking. Remember, you're not in human form on the other side. I was in soul spirit form, and I'm hearing other beings, other angels, and it's through vibration, it's through telepathy, it's through energy that you're able to connect. And the thing is we can do that here. I can read your energy, SHEILA. You can read mine. You know if I'm a negative person or I'm a dark force. We can feel that around people. So it's about tuning that radar system up to that frequency where you're really clear. This person is toxic. This person is negative. I do not need them in my energy field. It's going to pull me down. You're also, we do have telepathy. I can know something before you're going to say it. Exactly. And especially if you're with your soulmate, and you really do connect on a soul level with your partner or with someone. You can read what they're going to, what they're going to say before they even say it.
Exactly.
So we have that ability to do that now. We just haven't practiced it. We've forgotten. It's just like we have spiritual amnesia. We have forgotten who we really are because we got layered with so many different belief systems from so many different authority figures, religious figures, parents, everybody, you know, and to unwind from all of those belief systems, it takes time, it's a journey, and it involves healing. And unfortunately, I wish there was a more less painful, less suffering way to do it, but there isn't, because this is what we came here to learn, that we remembering who we are, which are these perfect souls that are absolute beauty, light, loving kindness, and that we are here to help raise the vibration of this earth, and to help us understand that these principles, these lessons of kindness, you know, of for me, the misunderstanding of death. Death is just, as John Lennon said, he wasn't scared of death. It was like getting out of one car into another car, because he knew that he lived on, you know, and it really is that simple. And if you're in fear of death, that's what I really want you to take a look at. And in my book, I really want it to be a book for book discussions, because I want people to start talking about death and their concept of death, their concept of God, because your beliefs about God shape your relationship to death. And also, there's a fear checklist at the back of this, so you can see, am I afraid I'm not going to leave a legacy, or that my kids won't be taken care of if I pass away? But we are not guaranteed tomorrow, SHEILA. Exactly. And I think we all run around believing that we are, and we keep operating that way instead of preparing what happens if I, for some reason, don't come back home from my shopping spree or whatever it is, you know, and to start preparing ourselves on a spiritual level and a physical level to make sure your documents are in order, because I will tell you, so many families become fractured and never talk to each other again at a funeral, because it was not spelled out from their mother, their father, or whoever passed away what the wishes were. It was just assumed. And so when the time came, somebody is upset that mother got, that sister got this china, or whatever it is, you know. Yeah. But a lot of people wind up having fractured, or just totally not talking to siblings again when something like that happens, and they don't get their part or what they should have gotten if it was not clear and spelled out prior.
Yeah. I totally agree with you about conversations such as death. You know, I think quite recently I was having a conversation with a group of women, and it has just popped up out of that conversation, out of nowhere. We weren't talking about that, but that question just came up. And one of the ladies said, has any of you prepared for your death? What do you want to be done to you when you die? And I felt that question was a bit awkward, you know, because for me, until then I was very uncomfortable talking about death, and you know, all of those. And they were sharing stories like, oh, I've told them that when I die they have to burn my body, and I don't want to be put in a coffin, I want them to cremate me, that kind of thing. And I asked them, why do you want to be cremated and not buried? And her answer was, I don't want maggots to be feasting on my body. I don't want to have to think of it, that maggots will be feasting on my, you know, that kind of thing. But now, as you talk about death and the fact that everybody is going to die, and we have to put our house in order for that time, because after life there is death, and it cannot be we cannot run away from it. We're definitely going to face it. So what are our preparations towards that? But let me play the devil's advocate now and ask, because sometimes people say that we say we are children of God, yet we have to go through some of these challenges you have had to explain to us. Do you think that, I know that God is not a wicked person, and sometimes he allows he allows us go through some of these challenges so that we get to see his goodness, his glory, because it is only by then that we get to appreciate the kind of God he is. Do you believe that God allows us to go through some of these challenges, and people say he's a wicked God? Is he wicked? I know he isn't. But for anybody who will be listening to us and will be saying, you Christians always say that your God is loving, yet when you're going through some challenges, he's not there, or he allows you to go through some challenges. An example is go through an accident of this magnitude. What can we say to people like that?
First of all, God is not a persona or a person, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so God is an energy, a presence. It morphs. And so God is this energy of love. There is free will. We all get to make choices. And your choice impacts me. And that's what we're seeing in the world with like COVID. If you chose not to wear a mask or get vaccinated or whatever it was, then you put other people at risk. And that's why I'm saying everyone and everything is connected. Because what you choose to do can affect me in a negative way. Okay, and so I don't believe God caused that to happen, okay? It was free will. It intersected two lives and something terrible happened. But yet, I believe that there is good that can come out of that. And what I have realized in my situation is the good that has come out of it is that I really have a direct experience now on the other side to know to not be afraid of death, that God is not wicked because God is not a human form. And so God is peace and love, and that is a presence, a feeling, beauty, all the beauty that's created, and it's a really different concept of God. It is not one that is involving judgmental or that vending machine where if you just did the right things, the right behavior, put it in the machine, punch the Coca-Cola button, you'd get a Coke out. That's not how God works, you know, because then you go, oh, I pushed Coke and a Mountain Dew came out. What did I do wrong? It's always back to you, blaming you that you didn't do something right because the outcome did not materialize like you prayed for. So I have changed my prayers to pray for the highest and greatest good for that person, because I don't know what it looks like. I don't pray specifically that their cancer gets in remission, because maybe that isn't the best and the highest and the greatest thing for them. And healing happens on many layers. It's not just the physical. Maybe they've healed a spiritual wound, something that was a soul loss, because when we go through trauma, our soul can fragment, okay? That means parts of us leave in order to protect ourselves. But that's a wound, just like a flesh wound needs attending to, just like a mental health wound of depression needs attending to, a soul wound needs attending to as well. And I think that is things repeat in order to get our attention to address what is the underlying issue. It may be something that's not really physical, but it's manifesting physical because it's truly, you're not emotionally expressing something, or you have soul loss or a soul wound that needs healing and you haven't wanted to address that.
Great. What can we say to people pleasers? Because you used to be that. I know that you're not that kind of person anymore. But what can advice?
I struggle with it. I can say freedom is on the other side of that, okay?
Yeah.
And freedom is on the other side of coming into your own identity, coming into the person who you were created to be, not who someone else wanted you to be. And when you have a relationship that's not based in fear with the Almighty God, source, whatever you want to call it, when you're not living in fear, you're free. And that is how I have felt letting go of this people-pleasing identity. And it's been hard because I realized I've done that with my whole family of origin, with my siblings as well. And when I stopped doing that, it's like crickets. I don't hear from them if I'm not initiating the phone call, if I'm not checking up on them. And what I've realized is We just have evolved differently. Not all souls are on the same level. Some of us are more evolved than others, and what I have to realize and trust and accept is they're where they are, and I'm not here to change any of them. I'm here to just love them for who they are and continue to go on my path, knowing that I came back for a specific reason, to help people not be afraid of death, okay? Because death, in truth, is you're living again. You're going back to where you came from, and it's a beautiful experience, and there's nothing to fear. And people here can communicate with your spirit. It's not like you're gone forever. You have a spirit, you have a soul, and you can ask that deceased loved one to give you signs, that they're okay. But then you have to be open. You have to suspend your disbelief of what something's going to look like, and know it may come through in a song. It may come through with a bunch of butterflies all of a sudden all around you. It will be something specific, but you have to ask them to please send you a sign that they're doing okay, or whatever it is that you need to do. We all have that ability inside of us to be, quote, psychic. It doesn't just come from mediums and other people that they just work that muscle a lot more. But we all have that innate gift and ability to do that, and to open ourselves up to having more relationship with the other side, because that is when we are passing, they all come in and escort us to the other side, including our dogs and cats and animals. We will see our deceased animals on the other side. So for those of you who are worried about your animals, I guarantee you will see them and the ones you love when you make your transition.
Great. Whilst we're about wrapping up, what will your final message be to our listeners?
Just start dialoguing with your soul. Ask your soul in a journal, what does my soul want to tell me today? Because your soul has the answers. And another way to do it is check in with your body, okay? Your body keeps the score. Your body remembers. So if you have unprocessed trauma, you need to work through that. There are different modalities out there to help you do that. But until you do, you have no compassion, empathy, and sympathy for people that are going through trauma. And that is why you have to clean up your emotional and spiritual alignment. And part of that is doing the work of letting go of trauma that is keeping you, sabotaging yourself from experiencing the life that is so beautiful for all of us to experience on this beautiful planet.
Great. We would like to say a massive thank you, Nicole, for coming on Podcast with SHEILA today.
You are so welcome. It has been my absolute privilege. You are just amazing. You're a little angel over there.
Thank you very much for listening in. This is season 2, episode 90 of our podcast series, where we bring seasoned guests with inspiring real life experiences to share with us. Do not miss out on all these lovely experiences. Subscribe and be notified when a new episode is released. Whilst at it, please drop us a rating. We have a video presentation of this episode on our YouTube channel. Just search for Podcast with SHEILA on YouTube and you would find us. Our prayer for you this week is that you never give up at the face of challenges. Until we meet again, have a brilliant